Kara Francis. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You are a marriage and divorce coach.
Yes.
I mean, is that how you would call yourself?
Yes, that's how I would call myself, although the work I do, it's a little bit more focused on identity, but within the lens of relationships, romantic relationships.
How does one become a marriage and divorce coach?
How did I get here? So I thought I was going to be a divorce attorney for my entire career. I decided that, quote unquote, when I was in high school. My oldest sister went through a divorce, and seeing her really choose herself and reclaim her identity and build a life that she really wanted to once she was able to get out of a relationship that wasn't working was very inspiring to me. And so I thought, I want to help people do that. Growing up in small town Ohio, I thought I'll be a divorce attorney. And so I was very much horse with blinders on. That was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I did everything I had to do to get there, started the job at the dream law firm, and did not like it. And had a little, oh crap moment, because you spend so much time and energy and money to get there to not like it. And what I realized is that I was so focused on checking things off the list and finding a job that I would work, having that certainty, as opposed to actually taking time to get to know myself, my personality, and how I actually want to help people. I stuck it out for about 6.5 years. The silver lining is that is where I first learned of coaches. So a lot of my clients had them, and I was always very happy as the attorney when they did, because they were much calmer, grounded, clear on what they wanted, and they were able to sort of roll with the punches of a very difficult process. And the more I sort of observed how they were working with the clients, the more that resonated with me and sort of brought me back to that original inspiration with my sister of helping people transform their lives through a difficult process.
Coaching versus therapist versus attorney, right?
Yes.
Walk me through, because you probably need a little bit of all three of those if you're going through a divorce. How do they all work together, or do they not?
Yes, you do want and need all three if you can. So a therapist, their role is to help you stay emotionally regulated and process any trauma. Things from it tends to be more past focused. Why am I the way that I am? Why do I feel this way? And it is the space to go for support around deep emotional issues that are preventing you from functioning on a daily basis. Coaching is forward-looking. It's more strategic, it's more solutions-oriented, and we're more so focused on where do you want to go and how can we work backwards to get you there? What steps need to be taken? What information do you need? What obstacles are going to get in the way, and how can we plan for them so that you can keep moving forward? How do you want to design the next version of your life? Attorneys are there for the legal side, so they explain to you how the law works, what your rights are and obligations are under the law, what your exposure might be, how to navigate the legal system in and of itself. But what I was finding as a practicing attorney is that a lot of clients were trying to use me for all three. And I wasn't qualified to do that. That wasn't my role. And after several years, I started to just feel not great because I knew I wasn't serving them in the way they needed to be served. Yes, they had legal questions and needed information, but a lot of the sticking points and problems that they were facing were not legal. They were personal, or they were emotional. They were identity-based.
And now in your practice as being a marriage and divorce coach, when are you seeing people come to you? Is it when they're looking for love, maybe in relationship, in engagement, or all of the above?
All of the above. Anytime that someone is navigating a big relationship transition. So that could be getting engaged. It could even be moving in together even before you get engaged. It could be preparing for your wedding. It could be strengthening your marriage, trying to decide if you want to stay married, navigating divorce, rebuilding after divorce. So it can really touch so many different aspects of your life, but the unifying thread through it all is your identity and your self-trust. Who are you? What do you want? What's getting in the way, and how can you move forward?
Do you find, or are you surprised by how many people, basically the question I want to ask, I'm not saying it the right way, but like how few people ask when they're going into a relationship, what do I want? Like, how do you, right? What's the question I'm trying to say? It's more like, how often do you find that people haven't even asked themselves what they want out of the relationship while they're in the relationship?
All the time. And it seems simple, like, duh, yeah, you need to know yourself if you're going to be in a relationship. But we skip that part all of the time for different reasons. I feel that there's a lot of pressure for us to follow a checklist in life, to meet your person, get married, have kids, and accomplish all of those things on the list, that we lose sight of the person who's actually navigating all of this and making these decisions. And we rarely take the time to take a step back and check in with ourselves and get clarity of, is this actually what I want? Or am I doing this because I feel like I should, or I have to, or because I don't want to disappoint other people, or because I'm scared to do anything else? And so it's so common, not even just before people get married, but my clients who come to me who are really struggling in their marriage and trying to decide if they want to get divorced, what I hear over and over and over is, I don't know who I am. I've completely lost sight of who I am. And even when I try to dig a little deeper and say, well, who were you before this relationship? It's kind of hard for them to tell me even that. So that tells me that they're also not doing that type of inner work before the relationship.
What do you think are the most important questions that an individual should have with themselves or with their partner when they are going through the engagement process or considering getting engaged or getting married?
I think the big topics are identity. So who am I? What do I want? What type of life do I want to build? The vision for your future. So that's topics like kids, money, career, geography, lifestyle, and communication. So how do we handle conflict with each other during the conflict and after the conflict? Are we having arguments about the same things over and over, or are we actually being effective with our communication and problem solving? And the fourth would be growth. Are we both committed to continued growth? Are we both committed to supporting each other's journey of growth? And can we support each other to remain our individual selves while also building a life together?
I didn't hear you talk about religion. Do you find that religion and spirituality is a big trigger in relationships, or do you think that's not as much anymore?
So I would put that in the bucket of identity of who are you and what's important to you. But it's a really good point because religion can be still a big issue. I find that it really just depends on the couple. It might not be as big of a divide these days, but if someone is very committed to their faith and the other person is not, that's not to say that they can't have a successful relationship with each other, but there needs to be conversations about it. And what I've found is that couples who are engaged and planning weddings are avoiding these hard conversations, understandably so, because they're uncomfortable and they're supposed to be in the happiest time of their life planning this celebration of love. So who wants to have these tough conversations that could possibly lead to tension or conflict? But marriage is not a magic wand. And so when you get married, those issues don't just disappear. They just get bigger. And they're going to come back eventually. And so that's why it's so important to have these conversations before you get married.
And you mentioned growth, which I think is really important because as you're in relationship, you're going to evolve and you're going to change. And you always hear in vows or in wedding speeches, grow together, grow old together, evolve together. For me personally, I grew up with a very Catholic Christian religion. Then I didn't really care about it in my 20s and 30s. But as I've moved in and had children, all of a sudden, I'm like, whoa, I want that faith base back into my relationship. That's important. I want my kids to be growing up with those same values. And, thank God my partner was like, okay, I'm on board with it, right? But that's something where I didn't even know that was going to be important to me. But as time has gone by, it has become important. It's part of that evolution, right?
Yeah.
But I think for me, just to contextualize it, I think having similar values is really important. So it might not be that we agree on the same thing, but we value the same thing. So we're able to, even if we have a different opinion on how we get there, in the end, we're aligned to some degree.
Yes. I think you don't have to be on the same page. You just have to be in the same book and be able to communicate respectfully and clearly and kindly and stay curious instead of getting defensive. Because you're so right. When we have major life events like becoming a parent happen, or losing a parent, or a job change, or a move, those are major events in our lives that can then impact our identity and our values. Values are not set in stone. They shift and evolve depending on your life experiences. And so you want to make sure you're with someone who's able to sort of be flexible and shift and grow with you and not hold you back from being yourself.
So what are some questions that you think couples should be asking each other? Like, do you have if you're only going to ask these 3 things, do you have a list of hot questions that can spark the conversation, or a practice to get to know your partner deeper in that way?
So I would recommend definitely talking about values, but not just surface level, like, yeah, family is really important to me. Okay, what does that mean, right? Let's go a little bit deeper. Does that mean you want to spend time with your family every week? Does that mean you want to see them a few times a year? And again, it's not from a place of judgment. It's from a place of curiosity. Like, what does that actually mean to you? And how does that impact our life together? So questions that I would ask would be along the lines of, what type of lifestyle do you want to live? Of course, do you want kids? And how do you want to raise your kids? And how do you handle disappointment? Like, things that are going to come up on a day-to-day basis that we take for granted. And it's not just about asking them if they love you. It's about determining whether you can build a life together that allows each of you to fully express yourself and be your authentic self. And so a lot of that work starts individually, because you've got to figure out who you are before you can express that to your partner, and then see if you guys are compatible in that way.
You mentioned that individual work is really important, so knowing yourself. But what external factors do you see put strain on relationships more than anything?
Social media, phones, family, especially how each of you grew up as children and how that impacted you now as an adult, and how that drives what type of life you want to lead as an adult. Friendships, career, money, the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically everything. I want you to tell me more about social media, because I think that's really important. I have a couple guy friends who are at the age that they should be getting married. They've been in relationship, and for whatever reason, there's a reason why it doesn't work out. And I think they've been with women who are excellent, that are great catches. And I think social media has created this idea of bigger, better deal, where they always think there's another person out there that's going to be better than the one that they have. And it feels like an endless feed of potential partners. That's for people who are trying to commit. But how do you see it impact people who are in relationship?
In various ways. So today's world is so full. There's so much, and more and more and more and faster. And it's information overload, especially with social media. You're seeing the highlights of people's lives, and most people are presenting their best days, and that can cause you to compare your own relationship to other people's relationships. If you are putting pressure on yourself to do certain things within your relationship or your life on a certain timeline, and you see other people are doing it, that could create anxiety. And those are the types of situations that really pull you away from your authority, your own inner guide, because then you start trying to do what other people are doing, because then you can post that on social media, right? And so it's the comparison. And also, I think in today's world, in modern relationships, there's an expectation that our partner is going to satisfy many different things about our lives than ever before, right? So it's not just about romance, but we want friendship, we want partnership, we want a co-parent, we want emotional intimacy, we want a travel buddy. You know, it's just because
a chef,
yeah,
a housekeeper,
yeah,
a travel planner.
And that's a lot to expect of one person. Because we have so much more access and options today than we ever have before. And so it's about how can you make choices that are very intentional and quiet out the noise as much as you can, because it's really easy to just get wrapped up in all of that and make decisions from a place of fear or pressure, or you're trying to make other people happy. And then time flies by and you wake up and you're thinking, I don't even know who I am anymore.
Another thing you mentioned is money. And I think financial literacy is a big problem in relationships.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you have a couple where someone's really good at managing money and the other one is not. And they're like, opposites attract. It's great that we're together. I think that causes a lot of strain. I always tell my friends, and whenever I have the opportunity, like, you need to know what you're spending, how you're spending, where you want to spend your money. And oftentimes there are kind of gender dynamics that I think have kind of gone out the wayside now, but there still is this power struggle in relationships when it comes to money. How do you coach your clients to work on that financial literacy, if that's what you would call it?
Yeah, yeah. And I completely agree with you, especially when I was practicing as a divorce attorney. I did see more of the traditional gender roles of husband is the financial provider, manages the finances, and wife is the stay-at-home parent and cares for the home. And whenever we would represent the wife, it would be absolutely terrifying for her, because now she's expected to make all of these huge decisions about finances when she hasn't played a role or had any visibility into the financial piece of their relationship. And it feels very overwhelming, and it's hard to make good aligned decisions when you're stressed and overwhelmed and scared. So with my clients, it all starts with conversation with their partner and communicating with their partner. And if their partner is showing resistance to wanting to share information,
Is that a red flag?
that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't, that doesn't mean call it right now, but it means that's interesting. Why do you seem resistant to that? And is this something that we can work through? I also know a lot of financial advisors and coaches and money coaches and all of that in the work that I do, that I'm always happy to connect my clients with, because I firmly believe that it's all about building a team to help you through these moments, whether you are getting married or getting divorced. And if money's going to impact you every single day, then you should know where it's coming from, where it's going, long-term, short-term.
I'm a big fan of talking about money, whether it's in relationships or with friends or, other business owners and entrepreneurs. I think it's really important. There is a fear about coming off as like money hungry or greedy. There's all these negative connotations about women talking about money, but I'm a big proponent of how much money do you make? How do you spend your money? Where do you put it? Where are you investing it? How, all of the things. What does that cost? What did you spend on that? I have that curiosity because I'm inspired by how people make money and spend money. And I learned it actually from a man that I worked with. He would just always ask someone, well, how much did that cost? Or what did you pay for that? And I was always kind of embarrassed when I saw him do that. And I was like, wow, and then I'm like, why is this embarrassing? That's cool. I want to know how much that costs. So now I take that into, conversations really openly with friends. And I feel like it allows for a level of intimacy and friendship, that there's trust to talk about those things. And I think it's really important for couples to have that conversation. So even with recently engaged people, well, who pays for what? Who's paying for what in the wedding? How much have you saved? People don't even want to talk about wedding budgets publicly because they're afraid of backlash of, oh, it's going to look bad that we decided to spend $150,000 on our wedding. That's their money. Let them spend it how they want to spend it.
Yeah.
Why are we afraid to talk about what it costs and why we spend our money the way that we do? It even happens when we do budget breakdowns of weddings, and you could see how a real couple spent the money, the $150,000 or the $50,000. People get in the comments with negative things to say. Mm-hmm. And so I want to just take this opportunity to say, like, that's not a healthy, energetic way that we approach the conversation of money. And that's why it has a chokehold on so many people and why it becomes a tension point. That's my perspective. And I'm sure you see it every day in your practice.
Yeah. It's for something that literally impacts you every single day. The fact that we're so terrified or embarrassed or scared to talk about it just shows you how deeply ingrained it's been programmed within us to not talk about it. And so whether it is money or any other topic, religion, sex, in-laws, anything, if you feel that like about talking to your partner about it, that's information. That's information first for yourself of why am I scared or hesitant to bring this up to my partner? What's going on here? Is it something about me? Is it something about our communication with each other? Like, what's coming up here? And instead what's happening, and this is really what I have found over the years leads to marriages ending in divorce the most, is we stop being honest. And it's not that we're actively lying to each other, but we avoid or we minimize or we ignore how we're feeling. We push it under the rug because it's easier in the moment, or we pretend everything's fine. And over time, that creates disconnection and lack of trust. And the relationship breaks down because you stop talking to each other. Mm-hmm. And so it's so important to be able to have open dialogue with your partner about money and all of these other topics. And if you don't, then it's important for you to explore what the root of that is.
I'm a huge fan of self-work. That's why I love this conversation. It fills me up. I can't even remember where I got it from, but it's over 10 years ago. I heard this quote about denial, that so many people are in denial. And denial, when it's defined as don't even know I am lying.
I love that.
Because we lie to ourselves about things. So we're in denial about, our relationship, our finances. We deny ourselves when we have that intuition that tells you something is wrong. And when I heard that, don't even know I am lying, you can steal it, you can take it. It's such a powerful thing because usually when you're in denial, that comes up. Mm-hmm. It's that feeling that there's something there, but you don't want to address it. Yep. And that to me is what's worth exploring and bringing up and having conversations. And, I'm sure you have a lot of red flags that you've seen, and I'd love to hear what they are. But I think oftentimes we see the red flags and we deny them because we don't want to address them. So I'm curious, what are, some of those big red flags that you've seen?
Yes. And before I share that, I just want to share, like, personally, this denial or this feeling. This happened to me literally today with my partner, just to show you like a real life example of what it is to experience this and not turn away from it. We've been talking about going to a concert tomorrow night, and as the date is approached, I've been getting more and more anxious, don't really want to go. I'd rather just go get dinner with him. And I felt myself just hesitant to say that. Mm-hmm. And I was telling myself a story of he's going to think I'm just, a wet blanket. He's going to be disappointed. He's not going to be, he's going to be bummed. And then I finally just said it, and he was on the exact same page as me.
He's like, I don't want to go. We're over
Let's
it.
go to omakase.
Yeah.
Let's get sushi, Yeah. So it just goes to show you, like, even in those littlest moments, and that seems like a very little nothing moment, but multiply that times
it becomes
10
a habit
per week,
yeah.
And just look at like the lack of communication. So just for an illustration that I'm not perfect. So red flags, I would say avoiding hard conversations, not being able to take accountability for the role that you are playing in the dynamic. It's a two-way street. And getting defensive instead of staying curious. So I try to remind my clients who are preparing for marriage or who want to stay married that view it as you and your partner against a problem, not you and your partner against each other, because no one's going to win in that way. It's about you two tackling a mutual problem together. So, and I would also just say a refusal to grow and evolve, people who are very stuck in their ways and don't want to change, unless each of you are that way and are content with how things currently are, then maybe that would work, but that's pretty rare. I feel like most times people are, at least one person is always going to want to evolve and change, and it's sort of like a spectrum how committed to growth you are, but you want to be with someone who's at least willing and open to allowing you to do the growth that you want to do and meet you where it feels good.
I want to switch gears and talk about choosing not to get married. So a very good friend of mine was with someone for 8 years. They were engaged. And as they were planning the wedding, they decided to call off the wedding. Another creator that we work with, same thing, was with someone for a long time. And then very public engagement, very public wedding planning, decided to call it off. To me, I celebrate those two women. Like, wow, like you stopped it before it got too far.
Yeah.
If someone is thinking about calling off a wedding or ending a relationship, do you have any tools or tips for them?
It is much less costly financially, emotionally, logistically, spiritually, to call off a wedding than it is to move forward with a wedding that the relationship is not what you need or want in order to be truly happy, and that it's either not going to work or you're going to stay together but be unhappy. It's much less costly to call it off, even though it feels really, really hard in that moment. So how I work with those clients is, again, all going back to identity. So who are you? What do you want? What direction do you want your life to go in? What kind of life do you want to build? And in what ways does this relationship align with that versus not align? When you feel a hesitation about getting married, what's underneath it? And usually the initial answer they give me is not the real answer. It's something even deeper. So for example, if someone says, they have a fear of abandonment, or, really what's underneath that might be a fear of being alone. And so it's about giving them a judgment-free, safe space to be fully open and honest with themselves, because you build self-trust through self-honesty. You have to be honest with yourself. And when you are engaged in planning a wedding, especially if it's in a very public way, it doesn't feel safe to express how you truly feel, because what will everybody else think? And so that's why doing this type of work with someone who can support you through it and who doesn't have any horse in the race, has no bias toward any particular outcome other than helping you make a decision that you actually want to make and something that aligns with you. And so it's about asking questions and clarifying values and their identity, and then helping them move past and process anything that's getting in the way of them actually making the decisions they say they want to make.
If somebody wants to work with you, I imagine you can't work with so many people at one time. How are you working with clients, and how do they get in touch with you? And is it like a mutual selection?
So my one-on-one coaching program is called the Aligned Decision Space. And it can be whether you're preparing for marriage, trying to work through your marriage, contemplating divorce, navigating, rebuilding, again, those major relationship transitions. And we work together for 5 months, because what I have found is that consistency and level of accountability, and also giving time and space to integrate in real time, is what really makes the sustainable, meaningful change for them. And during that time, you basically have access to me all the time. And I'm with you through all of the ups and downs in the ride. I'm not pressuring you toward any particular outcome. My role is to help you make choices for yourself that align with who you are and who you're becoming. So I limit my client roster to about 6 to 10 at a time because it's a really deep dive and I'm present with you through all of it. And we meet periodically throughout those 5 months and also have chat access with me to navigate situations in real time, as well as an additional layer of accountability.
Amazing. And where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Kara Francis Coach, or my website is karafranciscoaching.com. And the first step is to fill out a form that sort of tells me a little bit more about you and what season of life you're navigating and what challenges you're navigating. And then from there, if it's a fit, then we schedule a free discovery call just to get to know each other a little more.
I mean, I'm inspired. I'm sold. I want to do it. It's been so great chatting with you.
Yeah.
I love your perspective, and I'm hoping that everyone listening got at least one thing that they can take into their everyday life that hopefully helps them better understand themselves, have a stronger identity, because it is so critical. Before you come into partnership, you need to be your best version of yourself.
Yes.
And it sounds like you've been helping so many amazing people do that for themselves. And I'm so happy that you were here to share your story with us.
Yeah, I totally agree. A healthy relationship with your partner is really an expression of a healthy relationship with yourself. And so that's the type of work I'm helping women do. And I'm really happy to chat with you about it today. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening and watching the Loverly Wedding Podcast. Be sure to check us out on every major platform that you'd like. If you're here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. And if you're listening anywhere else, make sure to follow and bookmark us so we show up in your feed each and every time.